Bank Studios.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan, and in for Amy J this morning, Charles Thomas, former ABC 7 political reporter.
Good morning.
And Charles, we're revisiting what we began the show with today, which is an unfortunate way to begin 2025, but the terrorist attack in New Orleans, early morning hours on New Year's Day, a terrorist, clearly ISIS-inspired, that ran his F-150 through a crowd gathered on Bourbon Street celebrating the new year, killing 15, injuring another 30. This was...
there's the big question has to be, who else was involved in this? Were there any other people involved in it? And where'd they come from?
Well, there are a lot of questions, both in terms of the preparation for New Year's in New Orleans, as well as the post-mortem investigation. Here, just to give you some flavors, there were some eyewitness accounts. People shared what happened. It's rather horrifying.
He's coming up all onto the sidewalk and all that, but by that time we had already made it inside the divot, or is what I thought. Until once we get inside the divot and the car passes, I turn around to look who's all in here, because it was supposed to be three of us. I turn around to look who's all in here, and I don't see my friend. And I just start screaming and yelling, and I'm like, nah, where are you? And I turn and I look in the street, and her right leg is flipped like horror movie style over her back, and it's just blood.
Another eyewitness.
We ducked off into a nightclub real quick, and within 2 minutes of walking in, 4 or 5 girls come running in, push past security, and hide under tables. Me and my friend living here, kind of knowing what's what and things that have been on the news, we didn't take any chances. We ran upstairs to the balcony area that we knew was there, and when we got up there, it wasn't anyone chasing anybody. It was just unimaginable casualty. I mean, just the disfigurement and the bodies strewn, something you can't unsee, you'll never forget. We counted around 8 bodies very quickly, right in our area. One gentleman crushed, had tire tracks across his back. Once they rolled him over, he had tire tracks on his front. He was completely crushed. Another girl, small girl, was dancing when we were coming up the street, and she was just completely flat in the middle, dead center middle. Another woman just brutally run over, but still agonizing. I'm certified in CPR and first responder training, and they wouldn't let us help. They locked us all inside, which is understandable, but nobody else was helping. So that was even tougher. But just the fact that these people are somebody's people, and they're not going to be there this morning, it's rough.
Not to be graphic, but just so the depravity of this terrorist act is not lost, and the conversations about the behavior of public officials, law enforcement, both pre this attack as well as post this attack, because of course we have to address that too. Among the questions, in addition to what you said, Charles, about whether this individual had co-conspirators, which there seems to be some evidence. Federal law enforcement is saying they believe he did not act alone. But the barriers that were removed from Bourbon Street in November and replaced on New Year's Day with just orange cones that the terrorist assailant easily drove around and then conducted his rampage. What was the decision making there?
Well, he had to know that they weren't there. I mean, he probably cased the situation and, hey, I can drive this way. I can go this route to get to the most people. I would think. I mean, he seems like a fairly intelligent guy, the way he has spoken in previously recorded posts on social media.
Well, not to mention a guy with 15 years in the military and an IT and logistics background.
Yeah.
I mean, he drove from Houston to New Orleans with clearly intent in mind. He posted videos before the attack that pledged allegiance to ISIS, that threatened to kill his family. He has 2 daughters in addition to 2 ex-wives. And to your point about the videos he posted online, in which he comes across as intelligent and normal, a video that everybody's been talking about, we played earlier from 4 years ago, where he's presenting his wares as a real estate agent. So how does somebody that's embarking upon a career in real estate, post-military, apparently, go from that 4 years ago to the atrocities he committed a little bit more than 24 hours ago? For more on all of this, we're pleased to be joined by James Gagliano, retired FBI supervisory special agent and a doctoral candidate in Homeland Security at St. John's University. He also serves as the mayor of the village of Cornwall-on-the-Hudson, New York, and on the board of directors of the Law Enforcement Legal Defense Fund. James, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Dan and Charles, good to join you. Wish
Good morning.
It wasn't once again under such, somber circumstances 2 days after, we ushered in the new year.
Yeah. Well, one of the questions Charles and I both had, we discussed earlier, was the FBI's initial response was this was not a terrorist attack. The mayor's initial response, Mayor of New Orleans, LaToya Cantrell, was this is a terrorist attack. And the announcement came from both of those individuals a good 10 hours after the terrorist attack had been committed, where FBI knew that there was an ISIS flag. They had to know about the videos I mentioned that were posted before the attack. So why would an FBI rep say no terrorist attack?
Yeah, well, Dan, I think you know me long enough to know that I don't shill, and that I try to look at the facts and the evidence in front of me, and I try to call things square. 25 years in the FBI, certainly have allegiances to the agency and certainly believe it is still the premier law enforcement agency in the world. However, I know the special agent in charge of the New Orleans field office, and his name is Lionel Murthel, and he worked for me a number of years ago on a Safe Streets Task Force. Good man. I'm unsure the reason why he was not the front person. Typically it's a senior official in an FBI division. In this case, it was an assistant special agent in charge. I do not know her. I don't want to pander to your audience and play terrorism has a distinct legal definition. We want to be very careful, and that is all true. I just think that was a case of inexperience and glaring inexperience. And obviously, as an assistant special agent in charge, she should be good in front of the camera. She should have a command of all the facts. And she has the full public affairs office of the New Orleans division, as well as FBI headquarters. So, Dan, to answer your question succinctly, clearly an unforced error.
Okay. I mean, it's fair enough. I guess the FBI will have to explain to us, or maybe not, depending on their attitude, why that error was committed. What about the issue of the bollards that were there on Bourbon Street, these hydraulic barriers? But the story was they were getting replaced because they were not up to standard for the Super Bowl coming in February. But as Charles and I discussed, I mean, the Sugar Bowl, not to mention New Year's Eve in New Orleans, is treated like the Super Bowl. So how do you pull those out and then just have cones and a police car there that, as we saw from the video, the attacker easily got around, and not replace them immediately? And whose decision is that when you're talking about security for a national event? And I mean the Sugar Bowl, for example. Is that a local law enforcement call? Should we be asking the mayor and the local police chief about that? Is that a combination of local, state, federal? What is that?
Yeah, I'm gonna answer in the latter. It would be a combination. Now, every football game, every college football game is not considered an NSSE, which is a National Special Security event. Obviously, something like a presidential inauguration, the Super Bowl, opening day at Yankee Stadium, those are all events that would command the full force of everything within the Department of Homeland Security, and obviously in coordination with federal agencies, state, and locals. In this instance, I'm unsure, but I do not believe that, say, New Year's Eve revelers on Bourbon Street would be an NSSE. You couldn't possibly do that. I have a 3,000-person village that I serve as mayor of up in upstate New York. And a number of years ago when I won my first election, and being a retired FBI guy, I came in and I said, hey, when we do our ball drop, we attract 1,000, 1,500, maybe 2,000 people to it. We are no longer doing this without blocking the streets off. Now, I don't have a budget to put in concrete bollards or the hydraulic lift bollards that were the example that were not raised in this instance on Bourbon Street. But I insisted that we bring our fire department apparatus, our sanitation trucks, our heavy equipment and earth movers and block off streets. Look, the bottom line is we don't even know if this is what the terrorist initial intentions were to do this. He could have had another target plan and just looked for, as we say in the business, a soft target of opportunity. And I'll close with this. Terrorists they're like criminals, and they're exactly like water. They follow the path of least resistance. If you lock your car doors, it doesn't guarantee your vehicle is not going to get broken into and your contents of your glove box rifle through. But if you leave it unlocked, you just make it more likely to happen. And in this instance, did he know that they were going to be down in advance, or was this just happenstance? He was driving around looking for a target and then saw an opportunity to drive around a police vehicle and take advantage of the fact that the bollards were not erected.
But if it wasn't an SSE, even with the Sugar Bowl there, part of the bowl series with Notre Dame and Georgia and people coming in from all over the country for that game, if it wasn't that, then the fact that those barriers were removed and that they were not replaced is entirely a city of New Orleans issue, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, going back to 2005 and the Katrina response, everyone wanted to, rain holy hell down on George W. Bush and FEMA and the White House and the federal response. But you had a state governor who was in charge, and you had a mayor of New Orleans who was in charge. So yes, ultimately the security in New Orleans, it begins, and I don't want to say ends, but it begins with the mayor. It's obviously also underneath the control of the state governor, and then in concert with the feds when it's an NSSE. So yes, there should be enough blame to go around here.
The attacker and the radicalization. His brother spoke to the press, but really didn't say much about what happened to his brother, other than to say, what he did is not representative of Islam. Okay, fine. But that's not what we're interested in. We're interested in how somebody like an individual, 42-year-old man who served in the military for 15 years, talked about how proud he was of that service, posting videos 4 years ago about, being in the real estate business like a normal person. And then he does that, how that can happen. And as we talked about sort of in the post 9/11 era, how federal law enforcement can do a better job, even though I understand it's, impossible to be 100%, in identifying people that have been radicalized by whatever means and have plans for these sort of mass attacks.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're raising a much bigger argument or issue here, which is the continuum of, do you want complete security, which we all do, but do you also cherish the Fourth Amendment, and do you cherish civil liberties, and you want to live in a free society? And we have to find that middle balance. Look, this guy was a U.S. citizen, so that doesn't restrict what we can do post-boom or after the incident in how we follow up and prosecute. However, pre-boom, to the left of boom or to the left of the incident, it makes it more difficult because you can't eavesdrop on somebody without a warrant, and it's much more difficult to do that, to gather and collect information and data, from cell phones and digital exhaust. If somebody is not connected to a foreign terror organization, which gives us a much broader Patriot Act type of response. So that's going to hinder things a little bit. Why wasn't he on our radar? It's a tough one. I mean, it's a country now of, 340 million people. We know that the borders are porous. Hopefully that ends after January 20th, because we've got a 5,000-mile border between us and Canada and a 2,000-mile border between us and Mexico. And hopefully when those get sealed, or at least sealed better, we will limit the opportunities for people to come in to harm us. But this guy, and you pointed out at the top, Dan, there's two ways that this could have happened with an ISIS affiliation. Was it directed or inspired? And you mentioned inspired. That's what it appears to be right now. However, as the FBI and law enforcement begin digging deeper, we may find out that this, like you pointed out earlier, there were more co-conspirators, and maybe it was a direction. Those things are all going to come out, and I think they'll come out fairly soon.
What do you think about that Cybertruck bombing in outside of the Trump Hotel in Vegas? What's your intuition on that? I mean, clearly, from the evidence in the trunk of the Cybertruck, it was intentional. It seems like a suicide bomber. The one person killed was in the driver's seat. Do you have any sort of intuition about that?
Well, it's going to be interesting. I know there's some people that are, suggesting, no, it's just a coincidence. Other people are looking at it and saying, oh, no, this must have been connected, happened on the same day. This one looked to be more for performative theater. And look, only the alleged attacker, the person that actually was immolated or died of the overpressure and the explosion from the fireworks and fuel and other things that he had in the back of that Tesla fire truck. But this looked like more of a statement where I'm going to park this Tesla representing Elon Musk in front of Trump Tower or Trump Hotel, representing obviously the president that probably we're going to find out this individual was opposed to, and not in an instance where you were looking to take a heavy casualty count. Counter to what we saw in New Orleans, where the individual was armed with a rifle and a pistol, and obviously got into a shootout with police before he was taken down, and murdered 15 people, with many still in critical condition. So that was an instance where he was looking to ratchet a body count up. Now, could they be connected? Hard to say at this juncture. Looks unlikely to me, in two different styles, it appears, or approach. But both of them fit the metrics of the definition of terrorism.
James Gagliano, retired FBI supervisory special agent, doctoral candidate in Homeland Security at St. John's University. He also, as he mentioned, is the mayor of Village of Cornwall-on-Hudson, New York, and he's on the board of directors of the Law Enforcement Legal Defense Fund. James Gagliano, thank you again for joining us. Appreciate it.
Guys, thanks for having me.
And he joined us on the Turnkey.Pro answer line.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer.
Your show keeps me alive during the week. There's nobody I'd rather listen to between 5 and 9 in the morning than you guys.
On AM 560, The Answer.
As we near the end of the year, many families